All right, let's talk through the default payroll settings within the software. Um, we'll get into the actual running of payroll under the when we do a payroll training, but I do want you to be familiar with how payroll is set up within the software. So first things first is let's set up our payroll settings, which would be controlling the business name, address, etc. that go on your payroll exports or on your payroll checks, whether you want us to calculate federal taxes or not. According to your accounting system, whether you want payroll expenses to be allocated to the office or the provider attached to the patient, or the provider that's attached to the employee. For small companies, obviously that's going to be the same, but this does give you the capability later on of if you have an employee who works between two offices, having all of those expenses still tracked to the patient's office rather than the employee's offices. How you want us to calculate overtime. The default there is using a blended rate based upon the rates utilized for the first 40 hours of the week, or if you want us to pay your employees overtime at the maximum rate that they were paid during that week. How you want us to categorize your wage expenses, again by the employee or by the service itself. When your payroll week starts, what your weekend start and end times are. Those are valuable for when we do pay shift differentials or bonuses. You have the capability of paying employees a bonus if their shift is on a weekend or at night or during a first, second, or third shift. We can actually allocate bonuses to those employees based upon when they work. By default, we pay those employees at the lowest applicable rate. So, for instance, if they work a shift that begins at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and ends at 5 o'clock the next morning, and from 5 o'clock until 11 o'clock, they're paid their base rate, but from 11 o'clock until 5 in the morning, they're paid at a third shift bonus differential. We can either pay that entire 12-hour shift at that third shift differential bonus rate, or we can pay them for the first 6 hours at their standard rate, and then the next 6 hours at with the differential rate. And so that's what this setting controls. Whether you want to include a holiday bonus by default, for instance, you may want to give everyone an additional $5 an hour if they work on a holiday, or maybe you just want to say we automatically give them a 50% bonus for holiday pay. You can set that up here, and that will automatically be allocated to your employee payroll profiles. Whether you want people to your payroll clerks to be able to override the stipend amount that's paid on tasks such as orientations or training fees, whether you want the ability to partially pay an employee. This is beneficial for overnight shifts that cross over the payroll threshold. So, for instance, if payroll shuts off at midnight on Friday, but you have an employee who works overnight Friday into Saturday morning, this partial payment setting will, if set to yes, then the Friday portion of that shift will be included on the payroll, and the Saturday portion will get included in the next payroll. If you set this to no, then the entire shift would be paid on the first payroll run. And then whether or not you want us to automatically calculate daylight savings time as a setting. Then you want to set up your holidays within the software. So every year we recommend toward the end of the year setting up all of your holidays for the next year within the system, and within each of those you'll give us a name and then the actual date and time that payroll or that holiday begins and ends. And of course, any shift falling within that time parameter would be considered to receive holiday pay. Then you also have the capability of creating pay periods. This is an important feature if you run multiple payrolls. For instance, if you pay your clinicians on a weekly basis, but you pay your office staff on a bi-weekly basis, you can allocate each employee to a pay period, and that gives you the capability of kind of controlling what dates of service that payroll period covers, whether it's for a particular office, and how soon those charges have to be confirmed before they can go into payroll. You can also set up deduction types. So for instance, if you have employees who need child support withheld from their check, you can set up child support as a deduction type within the software with its associated GL code, whether it's taxable or pre-tax, and then the category, whether it's voluntary or involuntary. So for instance, you could set up child support here, and then on the employee's profile is where you would be able to select child support and the actual dollar amount to take out of their check. This just controls the default types that are available to you. Then you also want to set up your default payroll departments. For most home health agencies, this is going to be something like administration, nursing, therapy, or it may be administration, office staff, field staff. You may have a full corporate structure, such as payroll, HR, finance, and billing. So those are fairly straightforward. Just add in the department code, a department description, and again, you can create a general ledger code if that helps with your accounting. Once you have your payroll department set up, then you'll want to go in and create your jobs that you have within your company. This is where you set up the job title, the job description. The job description will go onto your recruiting and applicant job offers later, who this employee reports to, what the general pay scale for this job is, and then of course what department they're a part of, and whether we want to include them within our current job openings list. We do have a job board within the software that you can add to your website or to an external website. And this setting here controls whether we're actually recruiting for that job within the job board. So one of the first things you'll want to do is obviously set up your payroll categories and your all of the job positions and descriptions that are available within your company. We will delve further into the actual payroll and employee setup and process a little later on. But again, these are just the initial setup.